In today's show, we're going to talk about PowerApps Components. So components allow you to have reusability within PowerApps. So we're going to look at how we're going to package up some different controls to make a menu navigation and put that into components so we can reuse it. And then we're going to talk about how you can push data in and out of components. So a lot of flexibility and a lot of really cool power here. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with PowerApps 911. Those guys. And today's show is all about PowerApps Components. So what we want to do is we want to take and explore this experimental feature, right? It's currently March of 2019, so it's still in the early stages. It's been out for a couple weeks now, but what we want to do is we want to go make sure you understand it and so you can start diving in and playing with it so that hopefully you can incorporate it into your apps as soon as it goes live in production. And don't worry, when it does become the published final version, I'll make a new version of this video and there'll be a link below. So if you're finding this, months from now and you're like, wait, it's not experimental anymore, that's okay. My little video will get you there. Anyway, so what the idea is that in PowerApps, we want to build different things. We want to reuse them, right? So we have a lot of logic that's unique to our individual app or to the different buttons. But sometimes you're like, hey, I have the same header at the top of all these. Or I have this really complex control for doing like geofencing or for doing some other type of cool thing. And I want to package that up so I can reuse it multiple times within the same app or even take and export that off to other apps. So that's what components are all about. So what we want to do today is just kind of walk you through how they work, make sure you understand kind of what they do, give you some pointers, and then at the end, show you, some really cool examples of ways you might use them. All right. So let's just jump over to my desktop and dive right in. Okay, so over here, I've kind of started to put together an app, right? This is pretty typical. We start with kind of this consistent header, right? Especially a lot of you people who are building them for yourself, right? Inside your own company, you've got the same kind of header, footer, different navigation elements that you try and put on all your apps. Or if you don't, you should, because that gives users a level of comfort with kind of all right, I'm in PowerApps. I know where the menu stuff is. I know how this kind of works. And it just gives that a little bit of a sense of brand and makes PowerApps seem a little better. So if you haven't done that today, then you should. But so here's one I quickly mocked up, right? That it really doesn't do anything, but you can see I've got a company logo up here. I've got a purple bar just to kind of do the space. I typically need a back button on all my screens, so there it is. And then we've also got, the name, the date, and a picture of my pretty face, because who doesn't like seeing my pretty face, right? I think every app should have a picture of my face. No, probably not. Okay, but so these are an ideal situation of where we might invoke components. So with components, what we can do is we can take and turn this into one modular piece and then use that on all the other screens, right? Because today, think about, what do? You grab all this, you're like, all right, let's highlight all these things. All right, I got that, right? You do Control C, you jump to your next screen, then you do Control V, and then you're like, all right, I got to pull this up here. But if all of a sudden any of the logic needs to change, then, you're like, oh, I got to go touch every screen, right? They don't want to show the date anymore. So you got to go to every screen and change that. And it can just be a lot of work, or your company logo changes. Oh, so much work. So what we're going to do is look at how components make that better. So the first step with components is right now, because it's experimental. So we can go to File, and then we can go over here to App Settings. And so under Advanced Settings, so remember, preview features, these are features that are coming to the app very soon, right? They are on the cusp of being prime time. Everyone's going to get them. These are typically turned on by default even. So you should be really comfortable with these, right? So preview features, they're right there. But if you keep scrolling down here, then you get into experimental features. And these are typically off by default. And so these are ones that Microsoft is still working on. They might be on the road to get released, but there's some little features keeping them from actually moving into preview or production today. And so sometimes what you'll see is that things will change a little bit between the time it goes from experimental to preview to final. And it might go straight from experimental to final, right? It might even skip the preview step. So I only point that out to you to say, you probably shouldn't be using experimental features in production. I'm guilty. I've done it before. And I got bit in the backside by it a couple times, and it worked out just fine a couple other times. So tread with caution here. But when it comes to components, I am personally not rolling them into my production apps quite yet. But I'm using them a lot so I can start to understand them because they are so powerful, and I think they're fundamentally going to change the way that PowerApps works. So down here at the bottom, there are our friend components. We're going to turn those on. So say on. And so when you turn them on, you're going to see that there's now a new option over here on the right called Components. And then over here on the Insert screen, we have Insert and Components here as well. So two different kind of ways to manage those. But so now that we've turned those on, let's go over here. So you click on Components. So I don't have any. So we're going to say I want a new component. And so when it gets created over here, you get this little blank square, right? The idea is that we're going to go and build our controls, our functionality inside of there. Now, you'll notice that by default, it is 640 by 640. I made the mistake the first time I played with this, not really thinking about this, but you have complete control. So, for example, right now my app is size 1366. So I'm going to go ahead and change the width. And we'll leave the height alone just for a second. All right, so there's a new blank canvas to build my component on. So let's go over here to Screens. And what I'm going to do is, remember how we copied all this stuff a second ago? Let's copy all this again. Joop, like so. Control A, Control C. Oh, nope, not everything, right? Because I don't want these pieces. I just want the top stuff. All right, try it again. Control C again. So we'll switch back to my component. And so I'm going to put these over here. Now, I could just start putting pieces here myself, right? I just I'm doing the cut and paste because you guys don't want to watch me do all that. You know how bad I am at making things look nice, and it might take a week. But so now that that's over here, I can see that the largest height of one of my objects is 100. So now I'm going to change my screen real estate to just be 100. So my component should become, boom, 1366 by 100. So it's the right size. Now I could adjust this stuff. One thing I'm probably definitely going to do is rename this. We're going to call this my header. Like that. And so just like that, we have our own component. Cool. So let's go back over here to screen 1. Let's delete all this stuff off. Right? So that was all of the individual 12 or so pieces. And so then now what I can do is I go up here to Insert, right? So I'm on the Insert menu and then Components, and then we're going to say Insert Header. Look at that. Everything came over. But notice here, I can't click on the individual. I can't move things around. I can move the bar around, but I can't move anything inside there because it's a package and it's just going to reflect what's in there. So for example, if we jump back over to our components, we're like, oh, you know what? I don't really want to see Shane's face on all of them. And really, it's not Shane's face. What I really did, I know you people were worried about me, is I did user.image. So that way the user was always seeing their own face. A lot of people like that. But say that you don't want that. Say that you want to make your app really ugly. So what you might do is just change everybody's page face to look like, let's see, where is he? How about Clay? So, whoa! Now the app is really ugly, right? But now we've changed our component so Clay's face is shown for everyone because Clay likes to be like that. And so if we go to Screens, and then there you go. Now you've got this here. And right, if we go to another screen, so let's just clear this one off, Control A, delete, and insert our component again. All right, so now we've got the same header on every single screen thanks to Clay and his team's hard work. That's why Clay's being featured here. But we now have the ability to just take and consume this component in all the places, right? So that's step 1 with components, is just visually make something, add it in your app, and then everywhere that you want to use it, you can take advantage of it. Boom, right? So we do another new screen, right? Just for giggles. And then we just say, hey, components. Oh, nope, sorry, screen. And then now we'd say insert our header component. Boom. We've got the same consistent thing. When my boss yells at me for making Clay the focal point of this video, which she's been known to do, then we can just go back here and change our formula back to user.image. And in just a moment, we should see my beautiful face. Woohoo! Probably should have used Chewy's face, but yeah, Clay's a good sport. All right, so that's step 1, just reusing controls, okay? But with components, you can also do in and out. So let's look at how we would do in. So for example, when I was looking at this, I was like, you know what, the thing I usually do in my header bars is I end up having some type of like tell them what screen they're on, right? And so I thought, well, okay, so one way I could do that was insert a label here and just lay it over top of the component. That would work, but that doesn't seem cool. We want to do cool. So I'll go over here to components. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, I want to insert a label here. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to kind of put it right here. And let's see, we'll go to the home screen. We'll say, all right, let's make that text like 24. Let's make the color white. Okay, so that gets us a text label there. So then now what we want to do is we want to introduce you to how you input the input properties of a component. So click on your component over here. So in my case, header. And I'm going to do a new custom property. and I'm going to call this header text, like that. I'm going to make the name header text, like so. And then I probably should put a description, words. And so then if you scroll down here, it says, all right, what do you want to do? I want to do an input. And then what is the data type? And then here are all the different data type options. So I can pass text and numbers and colors and screens and all types of fun things. We're just going to pass text for right now. But so we're going to say create. Okay, so then now we have the header text custom property. So if you go to this label and you say, all right, label, for your text, way down here at the bottom, what I want you to be, and this is one of the things I struggled with the first time, but I want you to be header, that's the name of our component, dot header text. And so what happens is, to make this a little easier for you to visualize, they pass some default data in. But now that we've got the header text there, right, if we go over here, we see text. But if I click on my component and hit the drop down, there's header text. And so I can type, Shane was here. Oh, so that works. But what happened? Well, I didn't really think about the sizing. No big deal. The beauty of components, right? So I'm going to go over here, kind of resize this to be like this, maybe like that, and we'll set it to be centered. So we just made one quick change, and then now Shane was here is right there in my app. And if I go to another screen, it still says text because each instance of the component, notice that this is header _1, header _2, right? They're each unique. So I can click on header _2, and then I can set the header text here to be, screen 2. And so then just like that, we have gotten the ability to have flexibility, right? And so I could repeat the same thing here. But so that's one way we can look at pulling values in, right? So we can pass properties, and it can be all those different types over to the header and then consume that. And then each one's going to be unique, so we have a lot of control there. Man, my wife's blowing up my phone mid-recording. How rude. Okay, so what I want to do, though, real quick also is just finish this idea of the input. Because the other thing that I quickly realized, right, so right now I'm using this back button up here. And so one of the neat things I didn't realize until just this morning was that another one of the custom properties, so if we go in here, we're going to call this destination screen. And so we'll call this screen. I probably should call it destination screen, but what do you do? Destination screen. And so for input, and so then right down here, right, we've got the ability to use a screen. And this is one of those things I always remind people, especially when they're first learning Power Apps, is plant seeds, right? Read this list of things that you can do 5 or 7 times. You might not need to pass an image right now or for the next year, but it's good to have in the back of your mind. And that's what happened was I read that a screen could be passed, but I didn't catch it the first time. It wasn't until a couple weeks later I was like, oh, you know what? I could use that to make this video better. So there's my screen. We'll say create. And so then now we'd go here to this button and we'd say, all right, on select, you would navigate, and we would navigate to what? Header dot destination screen. And then right now we do a screen transition cover. And so then once again, we would go over here. And so we go to another screen here and we'll say, all right, your destination screen is not the current active screen. That seems silly. We want to go to welcome screen. We pass welcome screen. And so then now if we click on that button, boom. It's kind of cool, huh? All right, so play with that, right? Inputs. And inputs are pretty straightforward, so I don't want to spend too much time on them, but I think they're important to understand because that's the first idea you have is let's push data in there. But so then now, let's get really fancy, okay? So let's make ourselves a new component. So I'm going to go over here, components, and new component. And so what we're going to do is we're going to work on getting data both in and out real quick, though. So we're going to make ourselves like a generic calculator. We'll call it generic calculator. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to insert a label. And I'm not going to mess with all the sizing and stuff, right? You got to see me do some pretty stuff. Get over yourselves. This one's going to be ugly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, well, for the generic calculator in this label, I need input. Okay, so we'll go back over to here. We'll say new custom property. And we're going to call this number in. Right, very, very cool names. Number in. And so then that's going to be an input, and the data type is going to be a number. Easy. Boom. So we'll go right here, and then we're going to just change this to be generic calculator dot number in. Okay, so that way we can see, right? And so maybe I do something like this and say, you gave me something like that. Okay, so that way we can see the number that came in. Cool, cool. Make it a little bigger because it's easier for you guys to read. All right, you gave me 100. And so then what we're going to do, and right, where'd that 100 come from? Remember, that's just one of those sample pieces of data that they give us to work with. So then now we're going to throw a button on here, and we're going to say, all right, we're going to do this one, say times 2 or times 3, all right? And so what I want to do here is if you click this button, I want to take the number they gave me. And so we know we get to the number they gave me by what? Like this, so generic number, right? Boom. So take the number they gave me. And then we're going to multiply that by 3. Okay, but that's just doing the math, but not doing anything with it, right? So what do we need to do? We need to put that in a variable. So set var new number. Okay, so that is going to set the variable var new number to whatever number they give me, multiply it by 3. Something that's really important to understand though is that variables that you create inside of components are trapped inside the component. So the rest of my app does not see var new number. Only inside the component is var new number a valid value. Okay, that was a little weird for me at first, so I want to make sure I point that out to you. This global variable, as we've always called them, is now global to the component, not global to the whole app. So, get with me? So then how do we get that value out? How do we get var new numbers value out of here? Glad you asked. So we're going to go to general calculator. We're going to say new custom property here. And we're going to say number out, of course, because, why not? Continue my string of bad names. So number out, and you guys should put descriptions in here. I'm just being lazy. But so now we're going to choose output, and we have the same options here, right? So we're going to choose an output of a number, and we're going to say create. Now, how do you get that out of there? This was like one that I kind of scratched my head on. That's why we're showing you in this video. So if you go over here to advanced, number out, so right now you can see this is where you see those default values we kept talking about. What you can do is you can change that to be var new number. See what happened there? So number in, right, is just the values getting passed from the app, but the numbers we want to push back based on work that we do inside of here, we're going to use a variable or some other type of means, right? We need to specify that value. We can't just say, hey, button, go change that field. We need to say, button, change a variable or change a label, change something that we can specify or reference in that right here, okay? So what we're going to do now, that looks like that should work. We're going to go back over here. We'll go back to this screen. We're going to insert our generic calculator. So there you go. You can see why you should size these things because that looks wonky. But so then now what am I, and oh, whoa, did I mean to do that? Whoa, what am I doing? I've been drinking, guys. I'm sorry. Pull that up here. All right. So then that looks good. So then what we're going to do is we're going to insert an input. We'll use a slider. So controls, a slider, pull it down here. All right, so the slider can be anywhere from 0 to 100. And so we're going to click on our component. And so the number in, right, notice number out is not specifiable. So number in is going to be slider1 dot value. All right, and so if we change our slider, you can see that the component's getting something different in there. And then what we want to do is we're going to have a label right here. And let's see, we'll call this calculator says. And then what we'll do is we'll say ampersand. And then we need to know the name of this instance of the component. So generic calculator underscore 1. So we'd say generic calculator underscore 1 dot, not the number in, but it's number out. Okay, so if I did this correctly, then if I click on this, it should multiply 39 times 3, 117, right? Let's do a number that we're all a little more sure that we got right. 11 times 3 should be 33. And so then now you can see we have built ourselves a very rudimentary, non-practical, but showing you the concepts calculator of getting data in and out of a component. So I wanted to make sure you guys understood getting in and out. A couple of things to watch out for. Remember, this is experimental, so don't put this in your apps quite yet today, but start playing with it because it's important to learn and test and figure out the things that you can do. Also, there's a bunch of little nuances that you'll kind of have to start learning. Like we talked about the variables already, how to set the global variables global inside the container, not the whole app. Collections are still for the whole app, so that becomes a little weird. There's a bunch of little nuances that you're going to kind of learn. So to that end, I think to help you better learn, there's two things I would recommend. So if we go over here and we go to, we want to search for PowerApps blog components. And so here is a blog post that kind of did the introduction on the things. It also has a video by Brian Dang, a couple different ones. He talks about importing. You can import and export components as well, so that's important to know. So that's a great resource for you to kind of go, because right here, he's got some of the things like the data sources not being saved. You got some of the nuances that they know about right now. There are a few current limitations, but they're going to get all those sorted before we get there. Also over here on the blog is, I think if we go back, I should have just already had this open, but I didn't. If you go right down here, my good friend Mehdi, whereas he already made 10 reusable components. So he's got things like a map control, a radial thing, a geofence control, geofencing. You guys have asked about that before, and some other different ones. So he's got some really complicated ones. They are great because you can go download those out of GitHub, bring them into an app, and start to understand and see how he wired that up. It's a great learning opportunity because reverse engineering work of smart people like him really helps you kind of get a better foothold on these. So hopefully this helps you guys out. This was a lot of fun. Long overdue. I should have made this video weeks ago, but I've been busy. I've been on the road. I'm sorry. Also, quick shout out to the Power Addicts, right? So I found out my Power Addicts mud. So if you haven't checked out the Power Addicts, they are just a group of crazy people on Twitter. I'm one of them who we just love Power Apps, Flow, Power BI, that whole ecosystem. So great group to check out. Last thing, and I'll quit talking, I promise. Our training classes, right? So PowerApps 911, we do 4 and 5 day training classes with this guy. And right now we're doing a promo where if you sign up for training, you get a free $50 gift card. But if you sign up and you mention YouTube, I'll double that and give you a $100 gift card. So let your boss or whoever pay for the class. You get the $100 gift card to buy yourself snacks and things, since it's a virtual class taught online. That's what it's for. So, all right. Thanks and have a great day. Hey, it's me again. If you got a second, click the subscribe button. That always keeps me making more videos. Or if you want to work together, need some help getting your Power Apps going, hit me up at PowerApps 911. Always happy to work together. Or finally, if you're really just looking for more videos, that's probably what it is. Check out the Power Apps playlist over here and enjoy that. All right, thanks and have a great day.